Welcome back to my little corner of YouTube where I talk about all the things involved in writing a book, being an author, kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit to show you kind of what it's like on the other side. Because when you hold, that final book, you pull it off the bookshelf, that's a finished product. You have no idea the madness, the tears, the dread that go in to making that product is the process. And I kind of wanted to expose my process a little bit, just have this little author blog, author diary, so you can follow me along week by week on just the roller coaster that is being an author. And last week I had left off talking about book 4 in this quartet and how I wanted to finish it last weekend. And I did. I finished it. I finished my draft of book 4. I finished draft 3 of book 4 on Sunday night. And on Monday, I spent it thinking about book 4 and how it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel complete. The ending felt rushed. And I kept telling myself that it's just like the first draft basically of like the second half of book 4, and I will fix all these things in revision. I will fix them, every time I draft. It'll get a little bit, hold on. It will get a little bit cleaner. That's the words I wanted to say. Not whatever the nonsense that came out of my mouth was. But I told myself that I would fix all these things in revision, because that's what revision is for. You take the things that aren't really working that well, you make them better, or you cut them out. It's a process, right? One brick at a time. And then on Tuesday, I was thinking about how it didn't really feel complete because there were so many just little things that were kind of left unattended, untied up, unclosed. There was no closure for a couple of little things. And then on Wednesday, I outlined what would be book 5. And if you've followed these for any period of time, you know that I tried very hard, or I have been trying very hard, to keep this a quartet. I did not want to have a book 5 because I didn't think I had enough story left to tell in this particular series to sustain a whole other book. Then I finished book 4, draft 3 of book 4, and I think it's sitting very close to 131,000 words, which is kind of on the edge of standard for one high fantasy book. And I know, like, when you have like a high fantasy series, each book just gets longer, and I didn't really want to do that because, like, if you go over a certain word count, print cost gets astronomical, and it's just kind of So I was like, just to get this out of my brain, let me sit down and outline what would be book 5. What would I have to go in book 5, or do I just need to go back to book 4 and do an overhaul so that all of these things fit very neatly and nicely into that 130,000 goal? Because that's kind of where I like to keep my books. That's where most of my fantasy books have ended up, between like 115 and 130,000 words. That's just the sweet spot. So I did. I sat down and I outlined book 5. I have a midpoint that feels very nice. I have an ending that feels more appropriate, and there's more build up to this particular ending. And it's the same ending that I currently have for book 4 that doesn't feel like it has enough build up. I feel like, because in book 4 there's the reveal of like the main villain. He's finally kind of, pulled the curtain back, and everyone knows he's the big bad guy. He's gonna go do something terrible. He has learned something, without spoiling it too much. I can't really tell you exactly what happens, just in case you ever want to read it. I want to spoil it. So they gotta go stop him, right? And I just don't feel like he has enough time to really feel like a big bad villain. It just feels like it rushed his whole storyline, and I feel like the lore that I introduced was kind of just out of nowhere. That the whole ending just feels lacking. It feels like it was rushed. Oh, I can't explain it. Like, if you've ever written a book and you know it should be like 2 books, or if you've ever written a book and like there's more and you're leaving things out, you might understand that feeling of just that gut feeling of knowing that this is not where the story ends, that there's more that needs to happen to support this particular scene. I don't like how good I feel about this outline for book 5. It's a very, very rough outline. I just have kind of where it starts. I have the midpoint, which I really like this midpoint. It's more of like the 3/4 point in book 4 right now, and I feel like it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like I really have to like build more into the story to support it as a major plot point. And I feel like one thing about book 4 that I've talked myself through, because what was it, Tuesday morning or Monday morning, one of those mornings this week, I drove to work. I usually listen to it like an audiobook or a podcast, but I drove to work in silence and I talked to myself about this book. I talked my way through it. It's a very handy tool if you ever want to write a book or something bothering you. Just talk to yourself about it. Say the words out loud. What is bothering you? And by the time I got to work, I have about a 20-minute drive. 25, if I'm not feeling it. If I'm booking it, I can make it in 20. It was really, I think it boiled down to that the main character's character arc in book 4 feels rushed. And it just kind of feels like it's, oh yeah, and this, oh yeah, and this. And like, I didn't feel good about it. I still don't feel good about it. And by adding a book 5, I can more thoroughly explore this character arc. I can build it a little bit more. I can have more oomph and story and just development and lore to support this character arc. I expected not to have enough story for book 5. That is what I have been telling myself this entire time. And then I sat down and I finally was like, okay, what's going to actually happen in book 5? What needs to happen? And then all of a sudden I have a bullet point list of all of these things that need to happen in book 5. There are characters that are introduced in book 2 that are never revisited again. And I'm like, well, what are they doing? If we're going to this place where they are, they should probably be there. And there was a kind of an elder character that I introduced, kind of that mentor type character who just knows a lot of things. She can fit into this new lore that I have very, very nicely. And it almost felt like you found two puzzle pieces that just go together perfectly. And I was like, I didn't plan this, but it works out so well. And I think that's just my brain building the story. I'm putting pieces into place, and I don't really know how they're going to work together, but I just kind of hope they will work together eventually. And in this case, they do. They worked out very nicely. And then I went back to book 4. I'm like, okay, well, where is book 4 going to end now? And how much story am I going to have to kind of put into it to support the ending? I know where it's going to end. Like, I know where that light is, and it's a cliffhanger. It is a cliffhanger, kind of leading into the turmoil that will be book 5, of her dealing with kind of the fallout of book 4 and something that happens and that I kind of brush over. I also realized, this needs to be a bigger deal. It's kind of brushed over. It's something that has been kind of a threat throughout the entire series since book 1, and then I kind of brush over it when it finally comes out. I'm like, I feel like this needs to be bigger. This needs to be more dramatic. Because this has been a fear that has followed the main character the whole time, so it needs to be more dramatic. Like, when Indiana Jones gets thrown into the snake pit, he doesn't just look into the snake pit and go, no, he falls into the snake pit. He has to touch the snakes. He has to be up in there. He has to face his fear. So this main character's she's got to fall into the snake pit, okay? I like this metaphor. It's kind of like the what is it called? Chekhov's gun? That thing where, like, it comes from, like, the theater, the one playwright whose name it's named after, who said, like, if you have a gun on stage in Act 1, it needs to be fired by Act 3. I placed Chekhov's gun in the first book, and then it shows up in every other book, but then in Act 4, book 4, the gun needs to be fired, right? So this threat needs to come out. It needs to explode. And I'm kind of excited. And I just didn't... I've been putting off thinking about splitting up into, like, a book 4 and a book 5, because I just didn't want there to be a book 5. I wanted to be done with this series. I wanted to put it on the shelf. I wanted to get it published. I wanted to get it in the hands of readers. I wanted to get it off my desk, out of my head. I wanted to be done with it. And I wanted to move on to all of the other things, all of the other works in progress that are just beta fish fighting for dominance in my brain. If you've never seen a beta fish look at another beta fish, Google it. They will tear each other to shreds. And if you have one beta fish and you hold a mirror in front of it, it gets all poofy like it's gonna attack because it doesn't realize it's looking at itself. That's what I imagine all of my like ideas and like works in progress. They're just beta fish in separate tanks. And once they look at each other, they're like, "Rah." But then I also told myself that I was gonna read 3 books. I was gonna read and finish 3 books before I ever started working on anything else. This is why I try not to say things out loud, because now I'm itching to get back into draft 4 and like rough draft like what the ending would look like and just work on the outline for it's been a long day, okay? It's only Thursday. It's Thursday today. Yes. It doesn't matter. I want to get back into this world and like I have this weird like excitement that I get to spend another book with these characters. And I thought all of their stories were done, but apparently not. I have several side characters that kind of are constantly just kind of off to the side. So I'm excited to kind of build them a little bit more, have them have more of a storyline in book 5. Because there are several storylines that end. Not like the characters die, but like their story arc is complete. So I can kind of push them into the wings a little bit and shine some light on some of the side characters because I like all the characters that I built for this book. I have on my notes for this episode that reading is important. That is on my note. I'm trying to remember what I meant by that. Oh no, I remember. I remember. Speaking of reading 3 books before I jump back in because reading is important because you need to refill your creative tank. I am one of the people I need to be reading in the genre that I'm writing to really feel like I'm in the zone. Like I am writing high fantasy right now. I am currently reading high fantasy right now. I am reading The Road of Bones, that series. It's book 3 that just recently came out. And I'm like this it's one of the books that I've been really excited for. It's one of the ebooks that I will pay $15 for because I know that's going to be $15 well spent. This book will not let me down. And so far I think I'm about 50% into it. Has not let me down. It's actually really good so far. I really like it. It's a very excellent series. One of my all-time favorite fantasy series. It's more romantic than fantasy, but it still has a very strong fantasy plot. It's one of those, it has a very nice mixture of like romance and fantasy. Like I love it. And I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but it's keeping me in the high fantasy zone. And I'm also reading, what book did I start? It's that one, it's popular right now. Everyone says it's so good. Ooh, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I started that one. I think I'm about 25% in. And yes, it's actually very good. I did not anticipate to like it so much. I thought it would be one of those that I read a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. No, I really enjoy it. Like, if you like D&D, highly recommend this book because it's like you're reading like a D&D session, but like it's well done. Like, it's very hard to take like a video game and turn it into a novel. I've tried to read several books that advertise themselves as like, oh, it's if you like Final Fantasy, you'll like this book. And it's just, they don't translate well, like medium to medium. But this one does it very well. It's got a very, like, the sense of humor in Dungeon Crawler Carl makes this book, like, if it keeps this up, it's absolutely a 5-star read for me. I'm reading something else. I'm reading 3 books right now. Oh, I'm reading uh The Familiar by Leah Bardugo. I'm about 60% in, I think. I have the physical copy, so it doesn't very easily tell me what percentage I'm in. I'm also enjoying that one. It's very well done. It's very, like, it's historical fantasy, but it's got that Leigh Bardugo charm to it. Also highly recommend. I am enjoying it. But again, it's also fantasy, so I'm reading 3 fantasy books. And I have several books lined up for when I am done with this fantasy and I want to go back to my contemporary horror, romantic horror. I have a couple horror books lined up ready for when I finish this so I can jump back into my contemporary romantic horror setting because I expected to be done with draft 4 or draft 3 of book 4, and now here we are, thinking about book 5. See, and my original plan was to have this series done by the end of December and start a new project for this vlog series that I'm doing. Yeah, that didn't happen. See, the train just went in a different station. Reading is important. It was my plot point because I saw a post on it was reposted several places, so I'm gonna go on a limb here and say this person was really just farming for content when they said that they don't read the books that they comp their book to in a query letter. That blows my mind. That absolutely blows my mind. Because number one, how do you know if they are actually comparable to your book if you're not reading them? And then, like, a lot of the comments were agreeing with this person, like, yeah, I just don't have time to read. Time out. Time out, time out, time out. I will forever stand by the one writing rule, which is if you do not have time to read, you do not have time to write. Because if you aren't reading in your genre, what are you doing trying to write a book in that genre? What are you doing? Sorry, I'm getting very passionate about this topic because it just blows my mind. How many writers, how many people are claiming to be authors who aren't reading in their genre, who are not consistently reading in their genre? Or the number of authors who write a book and they're like, well, no book compares to my book. I can guarantee you that is not true. That is not true. You aren't reading widely enough. Or you're trying to break convention and you've written a weird book that doesn't fit it anywhere. Okay, okay, hold on. I did not anticipate getting so impassioned about that and ranting. I try to keep these chill. But no, I will stand by that one writing rule that I don't remember who said it. It might have been Stephen King. It might not have been Stephen King. So do not quote me that it was him. It could have been something completely different. But it's if you don't have time to read, then you don't have time to write. Because I get it. Reading takes time, and a lot of us have day jobs that take a lot of energy. Other writers have children, they have families to take care of, they have second jobs that they have to do. You can cut out television, you can cut out video games, but it's still like reading takes time. It takes time to get through a whole book unless you're one of those people that speed reads and you only read like every other sentence, especially if you're hunting for comps. Like, yeah, reading takes time. And I have found all of my comp titles because I'm reading in my genre. I am reading consistently in my genre, romantic high fantasy. And it just boggles my mind that there's always going to be authors who are just like, I don't have time to read, but you have time to write. So how do you know if that book's any good if you're not reading? Okay. Whew. Okay, we're just not gonna talk about that anymore because now my blood pressure is up a little bit. I'm getting a little angry, so we're gonna cut that one off. So my goals for this weekend is first off to grade because I am one of the authors who have a second job, and that is teaching English on the side, and I have essays I have to grade before midterms. So that is my top goal, is to get a huge chunk of those graded, done. But I also would really like to sketch out what book 4 would look like with this new ending, with this new cliffhanger ending. Because I realize that if I do this, book 4 and book 5 might not be as long as book 1, 2, and 3, which, to be honest, I don't hate the idea of. Like, I would rather put out, like split it up to fully explore the story and get all of the story out there than rush an ending just to rush an ending, just to get it over with. Like, I don't want to do that, but I also hate the idea of like all of these authors out there who are stretching stories just to have more books so that there are more books for authors to buy, or not authors to buy, for readers to buy. Like as soon as book 1 gets popular, all of a sudden the planned trilogy also suddenly becomes, oh, this is a 7-book series. And it's like, really? Did you really plan it that way? Or is it because your book 1 exploded on Book Talk and now all of a sudden you have to write 10 books in this series? There are several series like that that I was into until the author did that. Then like I got to like a certain point in the series, I'm like, I can tell this is where the original story ends, and you are stretching it for everything it's worth. No, there's several series that I have left unfinished that I will not finish because of that reason. I don't want to be one of those. And I might not. Like, I might get in here and like rough draft book 5 and then realize that no, I can fit all of this into book 4 if I just edit it very well. So I don't know. So stay tuned to figure out what happens there. And I hope to finish at least one of those books this week because I'm trying to not write anything during the week. I'm trying to stick back to that. I'm trying to read. Like instead of like where I would be writing, no, let me read a chapter instead of working on a chapter. Let me go read a chapter. Let me go read for 10 minutes. Well, keep your little fingers crossed on that one. I will let you know how that goes, or if I get in there and I rough draft the new ending of book 4, hate it. Well, we'll find out, and we'll just play it. We'll just figure it out as I go. That's usually that's usually how it goes, because that's the one of the big plus sides of being a small indie author. And I know I'm with technically like with like a publisher, but it's more like a co-op of authors helping each other. If something happens, I'm like, okay, no, I need to push the publication back for this book. Or I know I said this was a quartet, well, now it's 5 books. When we can play with dates, we can push things back, push things forward, take it easy, take things a lot slower. We can push back deadlines. And it's not a big deal. Like, it's not harming anything. Another big advantage is basically you don't have deadlines. You can set deadlines. I don't set deadlines. But I'm more consistent now than I used to be. Oh, I was on Goodreads today and like just looking at like new fantasy books that were coming out, and there were so many like traditionally published books by like established authors that have like average of like 3-star rating, and like keep going. I'm like, what's going on here? And like there's so many that are just like the reviews are like, this book's not very good. What happened? Why was this book was so disappointing? What happened? And I'm just sitting here just like, what? And I have noticed also that there's like this weird trend with like traditionally published books just not being very good. Like they're just not up to par. And I don't know if it's always been this way. And this is specifically with like romanticies. Also, I've noticed that there's just so many bad books coming out. And I don't mean bad as in like, I mean them in this is like books that aren't very hold on, aren't well written, or like the stories just aren't cohesive or just disappointing. And like you get in there and it's like, oh, this is mm. And it just makes me think of like, this is a traditionally published book. There was an agent who read this and was like, this is good, and then passed it off to an editor who also was like, this is good. And then it gets to the readers and they're like, this is not good. What is this? And then I'm thinking of this being someone who queried multiple projects over the course of multiple years before and after the pandemic, and constantly being told no, and then getting, good reviews from readers. And it's just like, where's the disconnect, But I think that's a talk, I think, for one, a different time, and two, someone who is more knowledgeable about the industry than me. Because these are just my observations. I don't have any hard data to back this up. This is all me observing reviews on Goodreads for popular books. One of which I have sitting on my shelf behind me. It was an Owlcrate book. I had the mistake of looking at it, and it has an average of 3 stars. I'm like, that's does not bode well for the book. But anyway, thank you for joining me on this little vlog that I'm doing. If you like this kind of content, you want more of it, just me trying to be authentic, which is what everybody wants, about like the writing that I'm doing, the books that I'm reading, feel free to subscribe, hang out with me here once a week while I do these vlogs. It is my goal, now that I was gonna be finished with book 4, I was gonna try to do more scripted content of like my favorite books, my insta buy authors, but I just don't have time for that because I was been focusing so much on like writing book 4 and getting book 4 done. Now I have book 5. But rough drafting is a whole different ball game, so that's not going to happen as fast. But I will see you in the next one. I hope the rest of your week is fantastic.